morning or the afternoon, wherever you are. So I'm joining from Australia, and I'm just giving you a little bit of an overview of what's happening in our part of the world. Go to the next slide, please, Brendan. So in our region, we've got a couple of countries, I suppose, that are supported by a number of societies that includes Australia and New Zealand. So all of these three societies here that you see are affiliate of ISAM, and that includes the Royal Australian New Zealand College of Psychiatrists, where I am chair of the Faculty of Addiction across Australia and New Zealand. We also have the Royal College of Physicians, the Chapter of Addiction Medicine, where Professors Adrian Dunlop and John Saunders are co-presidents and president-elect of that society. And we've also got the Australasian Professional Society of Alcohol and Drugs, which has a multidisciplinary base. So it includes doctors in addiction, both psychiatrists and psychiatrists, physicians, and general practitioners. But it also includes a really broad base of psychology, allied health, peer work, and research as well. So that's APSAD. And the APSAD representative for ISAM is Dr. Craig Rogers. And so just introducing all of these individuals, are part of the ISAM community, come to conferences, and really, I think John Saunders is well known to many people in this community, and really welcome kind of communication and collaboration across that society. So just giving you a bit of a snapshot of some of the regional priorities for us. One of the things that has been really front and center across our two countries has been a growth in lived experience and peer support workforces. So these are individuals who might be working within alcohol and drug support sectors and mental health sectors as well, coming from a background of lived experience of using substances and or having a substance use disorder. So the growth of the workforce has really been supported in recent times by our government as well. Historically, this hasn't been a workforce that's been supported financially with employment positions or a structured framework. And for us in Australia and New Zealand, what's really exciting is that renewed investment in this space has meant that we've got new sort of support structures to have peer workers within our workforces, starting to think about how to support that as a discipline, what sort of HR processes, etc., enable that workforce to work alongside our allied health and medical support structures as well. So that's certainly something that's a growth area for us, including in the harm reduction space. So that's also looking at workers who might be coming from a living experience background. So historically, peer workers in our region have been people who have had lived experience, historical experience, and are currently abstinent or in recovery. Now we've got also a growth in a harm reduction space where we've got workers who also have living experience, current experience of having substance use and or problematic use in cases, and being able to then have that workforce also engage with people in particular roles, particularly needle and syringe programs, for instance, harm reduction programs and lockdown provision, and supervised injecting rooms as well. So these are all kind of newer to Australia, and I suppose a really exciting space for us, and really keen to kind of reach out and collaborate with people in that space. Some of the other points, I don't want to spend too long on this because I know we've got limited amount of time tonight, but just giving you a bit of a snapshot of some of the things that are front and center for us in Australia, including pharmacotherapy coverage. So for a large couple of nations with a lot of geographical disparities in being able to reach people in terms of methadone, buprenorphine, and long-acting injectable provision. And so part of that is also understanding how we can look at telemedicine approaches, certainly something that across the ISAM community, we've had some really great collaborations in understanding how to set up telemedicine for buprenorphine and telemedicine for MAT more broadly. Hep C treatment and eradication has been a real priority in our region, and some significant advances being made in our region in that space, including sort of in-reach models and models where we've got Hep C treatment within AOD and harm reduction spaces that are really effective. For us, we've also had a really renewed focus more recently on integrated care. So that's for co-occurring disorders, co-occurring mental health and substance use disorders. I know this is of interest to many people in the room, and really welcome kind of being able to have conversations with people about what you're doing within your country to look at this. Within Australia and New Zealand, a couple of the things that we're thinking about include a focus on stigma and addressing stigma within mental health settings around addressing substance use disorders. So really welcome that opportunity to talk more about that as well. And the next point is something I'll just take you very quickly through a couple of points related to our workforce planning in this region. We've had a couple of initiatives more recently, one which is about to be published, another one that's accepted. And I think if Jonna Lavola from Finland is here, I think when she presents as well, will also be presenting on a similar commentary. So as many people will know who have been part of UFAS, there was a UFAS survey that will be coming out in EAR, European Addiction Research, recently. And as a result, there's also been a range of commentaries on that from a variety of different countries. So that includes ourselves in Australia and New Zealand commenting on our kind of training structures across addiction medicine and addiction psychology in our space. And we've also, on the left-hand side, you'll see had a workforce survey recently to try and understand what our profile in terms of addiction medicine psychiatry looks like in our space. So giving you a bit of a snapshot of some of the results of our recent surveys, really flags, I guess, a shifting workforce. We've had some challenges with succession planning for some time in Australia and New Zealand. The vast majority of our workforce is, as you can see here, the mean age is 50 years. And in some spaces, particularly within the opioid pharmacotherapy space, for instance, we've got a workforce that's very close to retirement in Australia and New Zealand. That's been challenged also by not attracting, until very recently, a high number of trainees. We now currently have in our region probably a record number of trainees within addiction medicine and psychiatry, but that's been a very recent wave. So we've got really some challenges in being able to support a pipeline of people coming through and support sufficient kind of provision of care across our countries. And in terms of giving you a bit of a background of what this looks like in our country, the majority of professionals who are answering this survey have had their basic training within Australia and New Zealand as a whole. You can also see a good 30% have actually trained overseas, and we have a large proportion of doctors within Australia and New Zealand who are internationally trained, and that continues to be a growing workforce in our country. We've also got a majority of people who've had their training in their specialization. So either that's addiction physicians or addiction psychiatrists. The majority have done that within our context as well. And you'll see that final qualification down the bottom is a certificate qualification, which is the highest level sort of tertiary qualification within that pathway. 23% do that through the College of Physicians, and then another 50% through the College of Psychiatry. And in terms of where professionals are working, as you can see, the majority are actually working primarily in the area of addictions. And that includes in alcohol and other drug sort of counselling and other sort of settings. We've also got professionals working within the addiction space within hospital-based settings as well. But you can also see that there's quite a lot of people who are working across a range of different settings. And that's hopefully also reflective of your own context as well in your own countries, where we know that people who present with substance use disorders don't present just in addiction services, but are really presenting across a really wide array of sort of mental health backgrounds, mental health presentation settings. And that also reflects where we have our consultants based. So just changing tack a little bit from the priorities to give you a bit of a plug for a conference coming up later this year. We're hosting in Australia the Third World Congress on Alcohol and Addictions. This is a collaboration between ISPRA and APSA, and will be happening between the 23rd to 26th of September 2024. The slides are taken from the website. The website's live, and the abstracts are currently abstract submissions are live. And the conveners include John Saunders, Andy Lawrence, Paul Haber, and Christina Perry. Really welcome interest in the conference. There are a number of really cool satellite meetings as well that are happening around the conference, and some pre and post workshops as well. So if people are keen, they're happening in Melbourne, and it's really nice that time of year as well. It's spring over here and really nice. Next slide. And finally, just to end on a note that we've got an open call currently for my role, a regional council representative in Oceania. I'm taking on sort of training chair role in a more fulsome capacity, and this role is currently going to be vacant. We've got a couple of people who might be expressing interest, so really welcome plugging it and letting your colleagues know if you know anyone in Australia who's interested. Thank you for that. I think that's my last slide.
Thank you very much.